Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and welcome to PlayLoad. This is all my video game pickups for the month of August 2021. And I gotta tell you, I hope you got a sandwich or a drink or something, because this is probably gonna be the longest episode of PlayLoad that has ever been made. I've been doing this show for almost a decade now. It actually started in March of 2012, so we're closing in on 10 years of every single month I make a pickups video. And man, I don't know if I've ever had one with more individual stuff where each thing has its story. I mean, this is just what I could fit on the table. There's actually packages off to the side that we're gonna do. This is gonna be kind of chaotic, so it's gonna be a long one. But anyway, settle in, here we go. Let's start it off right at the beginning. So this was a weird month for me because I got to travel a lot, and so did the rest of the world. So things were really opening up, and there was a lot to do, and a lot of random stuff just kind of fell into my lap, as it were. So basically, this month started off with a trip out to New York. New Jersey, Philly, and New York. And I went out with a bunch of my buddies. We went into Manhattan, as we typically do. We hit up our same old, favorite pizza spots and all that sort of stuff. But one thing we always tend to go to is Book Off in Manhattan. Now, if you're not familiar, Book Off is a Japanese bookstore chain that typically has video games and electronics. I've done many videos on the Japanese ones. However, there are actually some destinations outside, or locations outside of Japan. There's actually one in Paris. I've been to that. But there's also a few spaced across the U.S. One of those happens to be in Manhattan in New York. So while I've been in there 100 times, I think I've only ever got one thing in there. And on this particular trip, we're wandering around and I saw something and I was like, you know what, I'll pick that up. And that game was for the Xbox 360 History, Great Medieval Battles from the History channel. Probably nothing all that exceptional, to be totally honest with you, but it just caught my attention. I don't remember ever seeing this before. It was cheap, so I was like, whatever, pick it up, no problem. And that was actually the end of it for that particular trip, but not really, because I had actually been out to, and this is very ironic, I had been out to New Jersey back in June of this year. And I had actually got a bunch of stuff at Digital Press in Clifton, New Jersey, which is a video game store over there. But I was unable to take it with me because I was flying from Newark to Anchorage, Alaska, and I didn't want to bring all this stuff with me that really didn't need to go with me, risking it getting damaged and all that sort of stuff, when I could just leave it at my buddy Rob Janis's house. He's the other guy on the podcast. And he was like, yeah, I'll hold on to your stuff. I don't really care. So I was just like, I'll do that. I'll just leave the stuff at your house, and I'm sure I'll be back in New York for some reason or another. And I was. So I was like, all right, let's just go ahead and pick it up now. So some of this stuff I got beforehand, back in June technically, but now we're able to talk about it because it's finally here. First Xbox 360 game, Captain America, Super Soldier. This is actually, I mentioned this when I talked about the Thor game, which funny enough I had also picked up at a Book Off, the one in New York. This is an antiquated era. This is from the very beginning of the MCU when, the first two Iron Man movies, Captain America, the Incredible Hulk, and Thor. They actually still had movie tie-in games back then. And funny enough, Sega actually was the one that made those. So I've been kind of slowly trying to get all of those. I obviously picked up Thor. I've already got Iron Man 1, and now I have the Captain America game. I don't know if the game itself is actually anything interesting, but this is one of those things where I kind of wanted to pick it up because it's just a relic of a different time, and it's very unlikely that it will ever get re-released again in any form. So there it was for cheap, so I was happy to pick it up. The other games I got there, Secret Service for the Xbox 360. Just the concept alone just is kind of what intrigued me about it, but it's probably nothing great, but again, it was cheap. The one that was funny, though, was this was not actually sold in the store. I believe there was a guy trying to trade this in along with a bunch of other Xbox 360 stuff, and they wouldn't take it. And I said I'd take it if the guy didn't want it, and he just basically gave it to me, and it was this. It's Rugby Challenge 2, and the reason I think they wouldn't take it is because it's an Australian import game. So I think it's actually an Australian exclusive. I don't even think this came out in Europe, although I could definitely be wrong about that. It's probably known as Jonah Lomu. I think he's famous over there. But anyway, so in Australia, it's called Rugby Challenge 2. And I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll take that. And he was like, all right, cool, I don't care. So that's the only reason I got that. So some random 360 stuff. I also picked up, for the original Xbox, Digital Press in New Jersey has this big clearance bin full of miscellaneous discs and stuff like that. It's all very cheap stuff. And so I was just digging through to see what you might find. and something caught my attention. It was this. This is an original Xbox demo disc for Magic the Gathering Battlegrounds. This is just a demo. It even said offline demo disc. You open it up, it's got information about it, and then just the disc on the game. I like to collect for the original Xbox a lot. You know, to me, it's a lot of fun. But this is one of those like weird promo items you don't usually see very much, and it was like $1 or something like that. So I was like, yeah, whatever. And if you're interested in this, they actually have a ton of these at that store. They literally can't even get rid of them. So yeah, I was happy to go ahead and pick one up. Very cool. And then the only thing I got there that was kind of expensive because it was in the glass case, but something about it called to me. And this was back in June, by the way, so I had a little more money to spend on stuff like this. There was a PS1 game I had never seen before, but I don't know, I wanted it. The Raiden Project for PS1, one of those early long box PS1 games. This is a shoot 'em up, obviously in the Raiden franchise. I've always liked those games, even though I'm not particularly good at them. So I was just like, yeah, you know what? I'll give that a little home there. So this was the only one I spent any kind of money on, even that wasn't that expensive, but still, it's still good to get. So very cool to pick that up. Now that was the kind of retroactively going after all that stuff. Now, fast forward, we're at this month's trip, right? The one where I got the medieval game. I'm out at Digital Press, and again, Rob actually works at Digital Press. And he was like, man, we got some crazy stuff in that you might be kind of interested in, and I can hook you up here. So I'm not going to say what I paid for it. It was much less than it should have been, but that was, you know, pretty great for the store to do. What you're seeing here is normally the type of thing that would have ended this video because it's such a big cap off, but as you can see, we just have so much stuff that I just had no choice. This is actually a sealed new old stock set of the adult Atari 2600 games. Not every one. The most famous one is Custer's Revenge, which ironically is not in this. That's actually the most common one. This includes various ones. This first one, they're mostly like dual carts, so it's like a cartridge that has 2 games on it. I think you flip them around or whatever. Night on the Town and Jungle Fever. This one is Philly Flasher and Cat House Blues. This one is Bachelor Party and Gigolo. This is Beat 'em and Eat 'em and Lady in Waiting. This is Burning Desires and Bachelorette Party. And then this is a standalone loose cart, well, not loose, obviously, of just Bachelor Party by itself. So, yes, these are some of those infamous Atari 2600 adult games. They still have these at the Digital Press in Clifton, New Jersey. If you're interested, you can go there and check them out. But I was offered a very good deal on these, again, brand new old stock, sealed. So I'm like, even though I'm never going to open these, I'm never going to really touch them or anything, but like it's just kind of cool to have for like collector's purposes. So, there. Now, the reason what I said was ironic about not bringing that stuff with me is, so I was supposed to leave on a Saturday, and a bunch of my friends in that area convinced me to stick around until Sunday. So I was like, okay, I'll stick around until Sunday. And that caused a problem that I did not anticipate. And it's a really long story, so I'm just going to shorten it. Basically, when I went to the airport the next day, my direct flight from New York to Chicago was no longer possible. So I had to change planes, and by the time I was aware of this, my options were very limited, and they were pretty extreme. In fact, I was advised to just kind of stick around a couple extra days if I could. So my options to change planes were Frankfurt, Germany, which actually would have been the shortest, Anchorage, Alaska, or Honolulu, Hawaii. Now, Frankfurt, I could actually get into Germany very easily. I had my passport, my vaccine card. That's what Germany cares about. No problem. It's actually coming back that would have been very difficult because the Americans are still not as open to borders, even for citizens at this point. So I just didn't want to deal with it. Anchorage, I could have done, but I was just there. And like the whole point was not to bring that stuff up there. So then the third choice was Honolulu, Hawaii. So I was like, all right, fine. I'm going to go change planes in Honolulu, Hawaii. So imagine that mentally. Flying from New York City to Honolulu, Hawaii, waiting for 2 hours, and then flying up to Chicago, 8 hours in the other direction. That was the route I was given. So on the way down there, I contacted my buddy Mikkel, who's another YouTuber who actually lives in Honolulu. He's a friend of mine. We hang out when I'm lucky enough to get to go down there. And I told him, like, how stupid this was, that I was like, this is what was happening. And he's like, can you stay at least, like, a day? And I was like, I could try. And so I was able to log into the app and delay the second flight, which was a risk, because that's what got me in trouble in the first place, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, due to my own, I guess, incompetence, if you will, I was accidentally gifted a free trip to Hawaii for a day. I know, weird. But anyway, so I got there, and when Mikkel picked me up at the airport, we was like, all right, let's go do something. So the first thing we decided to do, he was like, they just built a new book off, because they have 2 book offs in Honolulu. We shut down one, and we built a new one. They moved all their stuff, whatever, so let's go check it out. I haven't even been there. We're like, all right, cool, it's funny. I was just in the one in New York, like, the other day. Now I'm in the ones in Hawaii, whatever. We go to the first book off. Mikkel finds a bunch of stuff. I don't really find anything. Then we go to the second one, and it's kind of the same story. He finds a couple things. I didn't really find anything, and I have a rule. With American stores, I never dig through the import sections because it's just a waste of time. Like, if you've been to Japan or you've been to parts of Europe, you realize the import stuff, you're just paying a premium on it. And I'm just like, I'll probably end up back in those places and I'll be able to get it for much less money. So I'm not usually something I deal with. In this case, Mikkel was busy doing something, so I was just out of stuff. So I was just like, screw it. I'm going to go through the Famicom cartridges and just see what's there. And much to my surprise, I actually found what I wanted. It was this. This is the Super Sentai Zyuranger game, which is, you probably better know it as the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This was the game based on the show that eventually became Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Cool show, actually. Now, funny enough, I actually have this game already, this exact cartridge. So I really had no reason to get this, except that this is a notoriously expensive cartridge, even in Japan. So for them to have it in stock, and they only wanted $10 for it, I was like, that's like just a huge mess up. So I had to save it, basically. So this is one of the few cases where I intentionally bought a double, but I really just had to rescue it because I knew what it was worth. And that was my only plan for that pickup, because you have to understand, at this point I've now flown to Honolulu. I now have all 6 of these games like sealed in bubble wrap. I have all this stuff. I have all my normal toiletries, all sorts of stuff. I'm really not looking to add anything to my bag. I figured I could get away with that. That was all right. But then, right as we're like leaving the next day, Mikkel's gonna take me to the airport. He's just like, "Hey, do you want one of these?" And he just hands me this headset. This is a Lucid Sound LS10X wired gaming headset. He was just like, "Yeah, I've got like a few of these. I don't really need them. You can just have one if you want." So then I had to find a way to stuff this into my bag too. So thank you, Mikkel, for doing that. I actually did need a new headset, but it was just like, I wasn't ready for it. So yeah, free headset. So thank you very much, Mikkel. Now, I get back to Chicago. I'm here for one day. And in that one day, it was August 4th, I do all my work, I get my podcast done, set all that up. Then the next day, I'm flying right back out to the West Coast. I'm actually heading out to Los Angeles because I have this whole series of things I have to do on the West Coast. In Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in San Jose, in Sacramento, in Portland, in Astoria, and Seattle. So my buddy Jesse picks me up in LAX. We hang out there for a couple of days, and then we make a huge road trip out of all of this. And along the way, we just keep doing stuff that we need to do. So while we're in Los Angeles, on our way out of Los Angeles, actually, we're like, okay, it's Tinseltown. You got the movies thing going on. Let's check something out. So we've realized that the Back to the Future house, Marty McFly's house, was actually going to be on our way out. So I was like, all right, let's go do the touristy thing. So we go over there. We stand outside. We start taking some photos. And as we're doing that, a woman comes out of not the house, but the house next to it, and she hands us this flyer that has like set photos and stuff, as well as Marty McFly's like fake California like driver's license. And she basically just explains to us, and I'll explain this to you in the event that you're ever there. The owners of the house, totally cool with you taking photos of it. They don't mind at all. But do not ever go like on their lawn or anything like that. You can stay in the street. You can even go on the sidewalk, take all the photos you like. Just do not go on their lawn or in their driveway, and then they don't have a problem. And I was like, that's more than reasonable. It is a private residence. So yeah, I got my photos, and I was all happy about that. Now, what does that have to do with video games? Not a whole lot. But while we were in LA, I just thought nerds would appreciate that. But while we were in LA, we were looking for stuff to do. And I told Jesse what had happened about how funny it was that I had the whole Hawaii thing, and that I had been to these book offs, and he's like, I'd love to go to a book off. And I thought about it for a second, I'm like, you know what? There's actually the only other state that has book offs is California, and they're all in Los Angeles. Well, you can kind of predict what happened. We wandered around and went to all these LA book offs, which was really amusing because we went into one and there was this sign that said Book Off USA, and it was like they're about their website, and then it's like the tagline was like visit all of them, and I'm like, hilariously, I'm probably the only person in the world that has done that in the last week. In 1 week, I went to the New York location, both Hawaii locations, and all the California locations. Crazy. But what did I get from those locations? Well, only one of them did I actually pick anything up, and I think what had happened is a guy must have just traded in like his Xbox 360 collection, because these were all pretty clean, the stickers were pretty recent, and the prices were really very good, because I don't usually buy that much Xbox 360 stuff, but this was all stuff that just kind of caught my eye. Now, I just told you about Captain America, right? What was another one I mentioned? Iron Man 2. They had it. Same exact deal. Movie licensed tie-in game made by Sega, early Marvel Cinematic Universe, cheap, done. But along those lines of mentality, now when I look at the 360, I'm looking at games that I feel like are probably never going to get re-released because they were like movie tie-in games or licensed games or something like that, and that's kind of what I aim my focus on. Again, if the price is reasonable, and if it's here, it was reasonable, unless otherwise noted. So we got Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, which was a truly horrendous movie, but hey, I'll take the Xbox 360 game. Green Lantern: Rise of the Manhunters, again based on another not good comic book movie, but still, I couldn't pass on, because you know this game is never coming back. This one's interesting too, because it actually has 3D glasses with it. Where the Wild Things Are, which not really my thing at all, but I can't imagine it's ever coming out again. This is a prime example of something that's never coming out again. Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian, the video game. You know, like the Ben Stiller movie. This is the second movie in the trilogy, and it had its own video game. There's no chance this ever comes out on anything else. This one actually could, though. Heroes Over Europe, which is a Ubisoft thing. I could see Ubisoft re-releasing this if they revisit the franchise and just kind of want to go back to the well. That one's a possibility. I don't know why I got that exactly, other than just being cheap and whatever. But this last one caught my attention because I'd never seen this game before, and it was a little surprising. So I looked it up, and it turns out it's kind of an uncommon one. I'm not going to say rare or valuable, but uncommon. Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper. Now, there's actually a lot of Sherlock Holmes games on the 360, to the point where it gets obnoxiously confusing on like which ones even exist. But this one, not so. This one is not the most common. So it was cheap, because I've looked it up. It's supposed to be a lot more than they were asking. I think they just picked a generic Sherlock Holmes game because it was probably confusing that the people who work there. And like, yeah, it's that one, and they just put Sherlock Holmes. But no, this is actually kind of a more uncommon one. So I was happy to get that. But anyway, that was it for my LA stuff. So then we drove up the coast. Now I should mention, so I was hanging with my buddy Jesse, awesome dude, and along the way we had worked out a little trade at one point, and he hooked me up with this. This is going to get its own video. This unassuming little card was formerly an Action Replay. It is now a device called a Pseudo Saturn for the Sega Saturn. In short, this has been modified so that you can put this into the back of a Sega Saturn, and it makes it not only region-free, as a normal Action Replay would, but it also allows it to read burned discs. I feel like, while that's an older concept now, I think it'll make an interesting video for those who don't want to get into the whole ODE thing, but still want to use original discs, but also don't want to pay money for like Panzer Dragoon Saga and so on and so forth. So I think that'll be its own separate video, so we'll save that. Now, speaking of Panzer Dragoon related things, I met up with my buddy Roger. Roger is the owner of the Sega Pluto prototype. Now, I've done a video on it. I've got another video coming out on it. And basically, we were just working on that video. And as we're hanging out, he actually had picked out something for me that he found and he had set aside, and he just hooked me up with it, which is this. Panzer Dragoon Orta, the demo. See, at first I thought this was just a used copy of Panzer Dragoon Orta, like disc only in a custom case. No, this is actually somewhat special. This is from Hollywood Video. If you don't remember Hollywood Video, I don't blame you. I think it was an American-only chain that was around for only a few years. It was like it was a response to Blockbuster. It was basically Blockbuster, but a different company. And they made some attempt at having their own exclusive game stuff, and I guess this was in that category. This is just a demo of Panzer Dragoon Orta. I even opened up the disc and everything and checked it out, like the data files and everything. So it's got a whole bunch of clip previews of different Sega games at the time, but the only one I think that was playable was Panzer Dragoon Orta. What's unique about this is that it actually says Hollywood Video, not just on this sticker, this previously played sticker, but actually like in the artwork, and that the artwork is specifically for this demo disc. And then you open up the demo disc, and it actually says that it's a demo disc, not for resale, and has the Hollywood Video logo printed into the disc, which would make it pretty unique, because I do not think there was any other original Xbox title of any kind that actually had that. I don't even know if there was any other discs, period, that had the Hollywood Video logo in it. So Roger just found that somewhere, and he's like, yeah, you can just have that. So thank you, Roger, for hooking me up with that. Now, after all that stuff, we went up to Sacramento. We were really just dropping something off at a buddy of mine at his house. And on the way, we were, messaging a guy who runs GG Retro Gaming. Now, GG Retro Gaming is a website. I've, met the owner before. A really nice guy. He's donated a lot of things to this channel over the years, and you've probably heard me mention his name before because he has a cool website. I'll put a link to it in the description. He's got pretty good prices on stuff, and he ships like worldwide. So he's like, hey man, if you're in Sacramento, if you want to hang for a bit, we can. So I was like, that'd be cool. So we went over and we hung out at his store, chatting with him for a while. And then he decided, you know what, I'm going to donate something to you for the channel. So he actually gave me this. This is Harvest Moon 64 for the N64. It's very rare these days where I get to pick up new N64 content, just because it's much harder than it's ever been. But this is actually one of the harder games left that I still needed. And he's just like, yeah, you can have that. So thank you very much to GG Retro Gaming. Again, I'm going to thank him. Put a link in the description there. Go support the guy. He's obviously a good dude. So thank you very much to GG Retro Gaming. Moving on, we then took a trip up to Portland and Astoria, Oregon. Now, Astoria, Oregon is where they filmed, like, The Goonies. And this was another random coincidence. Like, because we were in Astoria, we were like, let's go to the Goonies house, which is still there. So we went up and we got some footage at the house and all that stuff, and no one came out to talk to us or anything like that, so we just assumed it was cool. And after we took all our photos and left and everything, we found out later that the owner of that house is very not cool with people being up there. So much so that I guess for years they had kind of like hid the house behind like tarps and stuff to prevent people from being there. In fact, I posted photos of me being there, and I got comments from people being like, how did you get up there? Because like a week ago we tried and like some lady came out screaming at us and we had to leave. And I was like, I don't know, we didn't do anything special. We just walked up there, took our photos and left. We had no idea we couldn't go there. So, sorry, there was no plan. It's a little different than the Back to the Future house. But anyway, so we did that. We went over to the kindergarten cop like school. He's not a tumor. That's the school, which is actually visible in the Goonies, by the way. I guess a lot of movies were filmed there. Like Ninja Turtles 3 was filmed there. Not that that's one of particular pride. Free Willy was filmed there. I went over to the Goonies like prison from the very beginning of that movie. Is just down the street as well. So I took the little tour. It's a Goonies tour. It's just kind of amusing. Now, what does it have to do with video games? For me, not a whole lot. But the whole time we were there because my buddy Jesse had to do a bunch of work on, let's just say, video game related things that I'm not allowed to talk about at the moment. But there'll probably be some more information on that later. There will be something very cool happening in Astoria, Oregon in the coming months. Let's just put it that way. So while he's doing all that and working on stuff, I'm just hanging in Astoria. But then I get information. There's going to be this retro gaming convention in Seattle. Now, it's actually happening the exact same day we had intended to be in Seattle. Just that our times didn't work. We weren't planning to be there until the evening. Convention starts in the morning. So I told Jesse, hey man, we could make it to this convention if you finish all your stuff early. So he basically busted his ass for a few days just trying to get everything done and all wrapped up so that we could actually make it. And he did. So we were on our way and we went up to Renton, which is just south of Seattle. And so we went to this convention. Now, the convention was cool, but we got to finally hang out with some of my buddies. We got to hang out with a bunch of people in the Metal Jesus crew. So our buddies John Riggs, Kelsey was there. Kelsey Lewin's my friend. We were hanging out with her for a while, as well as Kinsey. She was there. Jason, Metal Jesus himself, was supposed to go, but something happened. I don't know. And then John Hancock, we talked to him. He could not go for family-related reasons. And we didn't interact. We don't know why Reggie wasn't there. But anyway, so we just hung out at this con wandering around, right? And I basically hung out behind, John Riggs' booth the majority of the time. So I'm walking around this con. It just felt like normal because this was now my second convention in since the before times and the long ago before this whole what's that crazy COVID thing happened. Yeah. But anyway, so wandering around and I'm just looking for stuff, right? And on my first pass, I'm just trying to see get a feel for the place, right? Like what intrigues me at the first go. And oddly enough, the thing that got me first is at the bottom of this pile, right? So I'm like, okay, it was this. This is a thing called the Roberts Paddle 4. It's just a first-gen system, and I'm not going to lie to you, I'd never heard of it until I saw it there in the moment. It's just one of these Pong clones, one of the billion that are out there. But I was like, it has the box. It's very nice shape and all that, relatively, speaking. And the guy wanted $10 for it, and I was like, that's interesting. And maybe I'll come back to that. And I just kept wandering around. Eventually, I decide, you know what? I haven't found anything else. I don't want to come away from this convention like empty-handed, so I'm going to go get that. So I go over totally prepared to give the guy $10, and I'm looking at his table, and it's gone. It's just gone. I was like, oh, man, I missed it. Somebody else picked it up. You know, what are the odds that some other dork like me is like down to the point where they want first-gen random systems they've never heard of, but apparently that's a thing, right? So whatever, I'm continuing to browse near the guy's table, and then I see it, but now it's on the floor in the free bin. And I'm just like, what? And so then I asked the guy, like, hey, did you mean to put the paddle thing in the free bin? He's like, yeah, just take it. If you want that, just get it out of here. It's fine. So I got it, and I got it for nothing. Even better. So again, it's like, all right, it kind of kept going like that. Like later on in the day, same thing. I wandered around, same guy's table. Same guy's table. He had this out. This is the Quick Shot 16 Deluxe Joy Ball controller for the Sega Master System. Yes, that's a Sega Master System controller. And again, he wanted $10 for it. And at first I was like, nah, I don't really need it. But then I'm wandering around, and then eventually he'd slashed the 10 and just wrote free on it. And I was like, wait, you're just giving this away? He's like, yeah. And I was like, you sure? He's like, yeah, just take it. So I took it. So both of these things were free from the same table. I went from $20 to free. Pretty good. Continuing on my way, at one time I'm wandering around, and there's this booth who had actually sold a bunch of stuff to my buddy Jesse. Like, Jesse bought a ton of stuff. He got some really neat things, but he was also putting down, like, hard cash because he had just got paid, like, mad out in Astoria. And so he was willing to spend money. I was not. But I was just wandering, looking for stuff. You never know, like, what you might find that's a bargain, what you put on credit or whatever. And so I'm just wandering this guy's table, and all of a sudden, he's just, like, looking for someone to watch his table. And I was just like, yo, man, I can watch it for you, because he had to go to the bathroom. I was like, I'll watch it for you. I'm not doing anything, whatever. So I go and sit behind the guy's table while he goes to the bathroom. Then he comes back, and now that he's back, I'm like, all right, no problem. Happy to help. Then I go back to looking at stuff because I didn't want to like start pawing through his stuff like while I'm the one watching it. Just something about that just feels weird. So I'm just sitting there and looking through stuff, and then I see this Mercenaries 2: World in Flames, just an Xbox 360 game. Nothing super like crazy or special about it. Just a 360 game. Based on the pandemic actually made this. The guys who made the Star Wars Battlefront games on the 360, the first one was actually a LucasArts game. So I was like, that'd be kind of cool to pair it up with that. It was $5. So I was like, do you take PayPal or credit cards? He's like, I can take PayPal. So I was like, all right, cool. So I'm about to pay him for this, and he's like, that's all you want? And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, dude, just take it. You watched my table. It's worth more than $5 for how badly I had to go to the bathroom. I was like, all right, deal. So this whole pile was free. Now we get down to the very end of the convention. We're in like fire sale time, right? And I'm like, okay, let's see if there's anything out there where you can just find some crazy thing, whatever. I didn't really have a moment like that. The closest I had was this one guy's table. He had Frogger Adventures: The Rescue, which is nothing special. It is a GameCube game I need simply because my goal for the GameCube is every single GameCube game that did not come out on the original Xbox. That's it. That's my goal. This happens to fit in with that. And he wanted $10 for it, and I was like, would you take 5? He's like, yeah, 5 all day, done. So I gave him $5, and I got that. So for that whole convention, I spent $5 and got this whole pile. I was happy about that. Now moving on, we're not done, right? So that evening, we hadn't, so far on that whole trip, we had not spent a single night in a hotel. Like, one of my buddies put us up in LA. We stayed at Jesse's place in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then we also, once we got up to Oregon, we were put up at this guy Marcus's house. Very cool guy, another retro gaming YouTuber, actually. We stayed in his house for a few days while we were up in Oregon. But in Washington, we figured we were going to need a hotel. And last minute, Candace, who's best known as, she has the Virtual Girl, it's a Virtual Boy, but she made Pink and she signed it, and or everybody else signed it. She has people sign that thing. Anyway, she and her husband were cool enough to put us up in their house for a couple of days. So, sweet, we don't have to pay for a hotel again. Way better to not only not have to pay money, but you get to hang out with friends. It's way better. So because of that, we had a new base of operations, and this was purely our like vacation time because I had done a bunch of work in Los Angeles and San Francisco. Jesse had done a bunch of work in Oregon, and so now I was like, we're just gonna hang. And he's not super familiar with the area, so I'm like, oh, dude, this place, if you guys don't know, the Pacific Northwest, particularly Washington, is like video game mecca in the United States because Nintendo's based there. Microsoft's based there. So the amount of, and there's a lot of tech engineers there. So the amount of random stuff that just shows up is crazy. So there's also a lot of retro game stores. So it's like, we're going to go hunting around. Now, ironically, in all the actual retro game store hunting we did, I think Jesse got a few things, but I only got one, and it was kind of surprising. I got this. This is RBI Baseball 95 for the 32X. Now, the reason this is a little odd for me to have my only choice is twofold. One, I'm not a big sports guy, especially not baseball. I also already have this game. I have just the loose card of it. But this was the boxed complete version, and the thing that was really weird about it is this is not an easy game to come by. There's 2 baseball games on 32X. The other was like World Series Baseball. That one's much, much harder. This one is the more common of the 2, but still not cheap by any means. This was mixed in with like their standard sports stuff. And it even has the plastic case on it. I think this is just somebody really screwing up because this is a pretty expensive game and they really didn't have it for much of anything. So I just kind of snagged that up. I was very happy about that pickup. But that was really the only game store one I got. Eventually, when we went back to Oregon, we went to another specific game store whose name I cannot remember, but I'll put a photo of it right here. This place was more like a museum. They had like crazy inventory, but it was all super expensive. I mean, they had an FM Towns Marty in the box. Astute viewers of the channel will know the FM Towns Marty is my #1. I want that console, but not for $2,000. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, it's cool to see. Definitely not paying for it. So we were wondering, we just see all this crazy stuff we'd love to have, but it's like, it's just not within our price range. But I was like, I didn't want to come away empty-handed entirely. And then I actually found something in the Atari Jaguar section of all places. Fever Pitch Soccer. You would think I'd like sports games, but I swear to you, I really don't. But this was boxed, it was complete, it was cheap, and it was a game I didn't have. And I was like, all right. Plus, Oregon has no sales tax, which is always nice. So those were some real game store pickups. Now you're seeing this last little pile here, right? Now, I should have mentioned this before, but it wasn't necessarily relevant, but it is now. Goodwill is also based out in that area, in Northern Oregon and Southern Washington. So what typically happens with your standard Goodwill is people donate stuff. The store, basically cleans it up, does what it can with it, and then individually marks things, puts them on a shelf, tries to sell it. But they get overflowed with inventory. So there is actually a policy for this where Goodwill trucks will show up to like every Goodwill in the country, and they'll just pick everything up. Like they'll pick up tons of it and just throw it on trucks and send it all out to the Pacific Northwest, where it gets reprocessed again and then sent into what are known as the Goodwill outlets, which work very differently. They're actually big facilities, like warehouse type of facilities, and they have these big blue bins, and basically they just put all this stuff in bins. They put the bins out in the center of the room, and then people just dig through it. And then whatever you get, you put in your cart, whatever you want, and then they take that, and it's the way you pay for it is based on its weight. That's it. It doesn't matter what the item is. It's based entirely on how much it weighs. So pay by the pound, but electronics. It's crazy cool. So I introduced Jesse to that, and that was probably a mistake because now he's like addicted to it because he found like 2 HD DVD players for like $5 each, and he's just like losing his mind about how cheap everything is if you find it there, which is the big gamble if you find it there. That said, I found some stuff there. I rescued a couple of PS1 games, nothing super special. I got tennis, whatever. I also got Medal of Honor, which would definitely be the better of the two by far. The first Medal of Honor game for the PS1. So this ended up being like, I want to say like 90 cents or something like that. But at the last Goodwill we went to, I'm going to split the story up a little bit. I found some stuff right at the beginning, and that stuff would be Need for Speed The Run, Xbox 360 game, as well as Star Wars Battlefront 1 for Xbox One, which is kind of interesting actually because it's essentially like brand new. Like whoever had this clearly didn't really like it and they donated it. I actually wasn't going to get it because it was just going to be I thought it was an online only game, but I guess under enough pressure from EA they had to update it to add a single player offline mode. So that was the only reason I got it. That and it cost like 90 cents or whatever. So I got that. Now you're noticing some hardware here. This is in 2 separate locations. We went into a standard Goodwill, and a standard Goodwill where they individually mark things. And this was in Oregon, I think. And so we picked this. I found this in a bin. So like normally when you see electronics, they just kind of have them sitting out on the counter. This was like a guy had a cart and he was like putting new inventory on the counters. And so while he stopped to put something away, I was just I didn't realize I shouldn't do this. I guess I was just being a jerk. I should have thought about this. But I just started digging through that cart. Like, again, that's not responsible. I shouldn't have done it. It was just, hey, it's stuff. I wasn't really thinking. And in there was this, the PlayStation 2 with the broadband modem. And so I pulled it out. Then the guy came over and he was like, hey, you're not supposed to be digging through that because we're just putting that stuff out there. I was like, oh, can I not buy this then? He was like, no, you've already taken it out. You can buy it. Just don't dig through it anymore. And I was like, all right. So I already got the big score. What do I care? So yeah, this was a $13 PlayStation 2 with the broadband modem. I'm fairly certain it works because it's in pretty good shape, but I powered it up in the store at least, and it did turn on and all that. The disk drive works. So what I'm going to do is make a separate video on this, cleaning it. I know I've done a video cleaning a PS2 before, but I think it's time to do another one with a better camera and everything, because this seems to be the most commonly demanded console on like how to clean. So whatever, we have that opportunity, let's do it. In fact, most of the videos you ever saw me clean stuff up in, like in the early days, were from these Goodwill outlets back in the day. Because they used to just have tons of GameCubes and Xboxes. It was crazy. They don't have that anymore. But what they do have, man. So this is like kind of the perfect cap off to this section of the video. So Jesse and I, the morning of my flight, like I got to be at the airport in Portland at like 11 a.m. And there was a Goodwill outlet right by the airport, and we went to it at like 9:30 in the morning. So we go in there, and we're digging around, and that was actually when I found like the Star Wars game and that 360 game. So digging around, I find that stuff. He finds a few other things, and as we're doing that, there's some bins being taken out and new bins coming in. Now the thing is, when new bins come in, people become like, you know, piranha. They just kind of jump at the things, and they claw at it, whatever. And so we wanted nothing to do with that. We're just like, you do you, that's fine. Let them do their thing. And after they dig through it and it's calmed down, then we decide to go over there and just kind of look around. And so we get to this one bin, and then Jesse's like, oh man, look what I found. He found an Xbox One power supply, like the base VCR Xbox One power supply. I'm like, oh, dude. And then I'm like, well, congrats, man. And then I'm digging around, I'm like, well, you know what? You can keep that, because I found this. I found the actual Xbox One that it goes with. And he was like, bruh, like, you have to give that to me. I just found the power supply. I'm like, I don't think so, man. Pretty sure the rules state, like, whoever grabs it is the winner. And he knew that was true. He was just, I don't blame him for being upset about it. Plus, I found his HD DVD players. I found his HD DVD players, and I gave them to him. I did my part. But anyway, so, and he was excited about that, by the way, because he had bought a bunch of HD DVDs the day before. Anyway, so I found this. I was happy about that. But he could not have owned me harder if he wanted to. Because he's like, oh, you know what? You can keep that. And he pulls up an Xbox One X. He got an Xbox One X at a Goodwill outlet. Just for reference, this is the heavier one. This cost about $5. His probably cost like $3 for an Xbox One X. Now, the thing is, he's since tested it. His Xbox One X definitely works. There's no problems with it whatsoever. I've not fired this up yet, and there's a very specific reason for that. We just walked out of the Goodwill Dig and Save, or Goodwill outlet near the airport in Portland, Oregon, and we both got crazy stuff. I found an Xbox One VCR base model, along with an Xbox One game, Star Wars Battlefront, an Xbox 360 game, Need for Speed The Run, and the power supply. All of this for $10, because it's based on the weight. Oh, and that wasn't even the end of it. After I pulled out the Xbox One, this homie right here who's filming it, Jesse, finds an Xbox One X, as well as all this crap. All of this combined was what, $20?
20 bucks.
We got the deal of the day. Holy crap, it was awesome. We got a few packages sent in, all stuff I didn't order, it was just sent to me. So thank you to the people who have done that, but we'll go through it one at a time here. First up is this. This comes from a company that makes Nintendo Switch products. And they randomly sent me this. This is a multi-functioning charging dock with cooling fan. Basically, this is a replacement Nintendo Switch charging dock. This one happens to have like a fan built into it to, I guess, keep the system cool. Obviously, I haven't used it before. I'm just opening it up for the first time now. But it says it's got, you know, video interface, the switching screen, you know, one-touch conversion, USB 3.0. It's got 3 USB ports and a cooling fan. So basically, it's a Nintendo Switch dock, smaller, and has a built-in fan in it. So it's just, I guess, an alternative option for a Nintendo Switch dock. So thank you to the guys who were cool enough to send me that. I'll put a link to this in the description if you want to check this out. You have that option. Yeah, so there you go. Thank you very much for the Nintendo Switch dock. Now, the next thing up, this was a little bit stranger. This actually comes from a company called Leppo. Let me go ahead and open this up before we continue to talk about it. Now, Leppo has actually sent me stuff in the past. In fact, they sent me something incredibly similar to this in the past before, which was very nice of them to do. And they just randomly reached out and said, like, hey, we're sending you our newest thing. Enjoy. And I was like, all right, cool, man. Thank you. Leppo Lite H1 series. This is actually a 14-inch portable monitor. Now, I've shown a couple of portable monitors on the channel because Lepo has sent me some of them before. They're basically like the laptop minus the laptop. You know what I mean? They're just the screen. They're pretty cool, actually. They're good for, you know, extra monitors around your house. Like, I actually use them a lot of the time, like right on this table when I'm updating consoles and stuff, so I can watch TV over there while doing something over here. And, you know, they're good for, you know, extra screens. And they're actually, one thing they're really good at, and I don't think they get enough credit for, although I think this one was actually more designed with that in mind, is for screen tethering with your phone. If your phone supports it, then you can actually use this vertically as well, and it even has a stand, I'll show you in a bit, that allows you to be able to see it vertically. So yeah, if you just need a bigger display for your phone, you have that option as well. So we're going to use this in a little bit because I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but I think because they set this monitor for me and I haven't had a chance to use that Xbox One, I think we should do a little live demo together to see if that thing even works and like what the result is. So we'll be back with this monitor in a few minutes, but you know, let's just get a quick look at it, I think. How about now inside you have stuff about Lepo's website and, you know, registering the product and all that sort of stuff. In there you have foam protecting it. You have a case protector, like a screen protector. To tell you the truth, it's cool that they include these. I never use them because I can never successfully get them on. They always leave like air bubbles and stuff. I suck at that. That's why I buy things like OtterBox cases for my phone. Now, if they made some sort of OtterBox case for the screen, I'd be all over that. Introduction information about the monitor stand and the different ways you can display it. Like I said, you can display it vertically. Includes a couple of cables. I believe this is a USB-C cable, a C-to-C cable, as well as a charging adapter, USB charging adapter. The monitor itself, oh no, sorry, these are extra cables over here. This is the USB-C to USB-C cable. This is an HDMI to HDMI micro cable. It uses HDMI micro. It has wipes for cleaning of the screen and all that, removing dust, user guide, FAQ, all that sort of stuff. But the main piece itself right here, which is the monitor, is this. Now, the monitor is 14 inches based on, you know, the diagonal. This is actually smaller than the previous ones, which were like 15 and a half. So this is from, I really think the purpose of this was more for your phone than it was for anything else. But see, they have these different types of magnetic stands, and so you can set it up like this, and that way once it's like done, it sets up vertically like you would, you know, your phone if you want a screen tether. But or alternatively, you can flip it around like this and, you know, use it this way. So you've got options. Like I said, I actually really like these things. I'm glad to have another one. They're very convenient. But yeah, it also allows HDMI micro input, so anything HDMI, as well as anything that's USB-C based. So like you can actually connect a Nintendo Switch directly to this. So I guess you could combine these two things there and have like a good, nice little Switch experience if you wanted to. But yeah, it's got two speakers in the back. It's got a headphone port, 3.5 millimeter. It also uses a USB port, USB-C for power. So there's two USB ports, one specifically for power and one for data. So again, like something like the Switch where it can just feed data straight through. And again, HDMI mini, volume dial, and headphone jack. So we'll set this up in a little bit to use with the Xbox One, but thank you to the guys at Lepo for that. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Let's kind of move this stuff to the side because the last thing, I have no idea what it really is. I have a guess, but only a guess. This comes from the Bahar Bros. If you've watched this channel for a while, then you've probably heard of these guys. They make a lot of cool stuff. They've been doing Dreamcast stuff for years, and I've been doing videos on it all that time, like little HDMI boxes and better VGA boxes. They're basically the gold standard when it comes to those type of add-ons. They randomly messaged me like a month ago, and they're like, hey, we made you something, we're sending it. And I'm like, what is it? And they're like, we won't tell you. It was supposed to be a secret. So I actually have no idea what this is. So that's done. Inside we have a SCART cable. That implies something. We have what looks like a power supply for something. And we have a device. Okay. Get that. What is that? Oh, that's probably part of the crate that we're talking about. There's the other end of the power supply, which... No, I was going to say it looks European, but it's not. That's the European end. This is with the American adapter. So part of this little crate thing they were talking about already fell off, which is actually good news for me because then I don't need to do anything special. I can just slide it out. Well, this is something crazy. This is, if I can get past all this, there's a piece there too. This is, oh, see, there you go. There's a little plate for it. This is a consoleized MVS, Neo Geo MVS. They build these themselves. I've seen this on their website. I had no idea this is what they were sending. They put it in a custom metal shell like that. It has RCA audio jacks on the back. It's got a whole bunch of switches on the back for various features, I'm sure. Power, SCART port, 2 controller ports, which I believe use standard Neo Geo controllers, which fortunately I have plenty of. So basically, long story short, the Neo, and it's also got this thing, which is some sort of dust cover, it looks like. Yep, there you go. And you just put that on there. It's magnetic. That's actually kind of neat. So it just keeps the port clean like that. Or does it go this way? I think it's, yeah, that makes more sense. Magnets on each side. But yeah, this is a consoleized MVS. Now, a Neo Geo MVS was basically the arcade version of the Neo Geo AES. So what SNK did in order to save money was they basically said, look, we'll make the same system but twice, but they had to make the home console cartridges much more expensive than the arcade ones. But they also didn't want to create a situation where they made cartridges for the arcades, which were much cheaper. People just go buy those and then put them in their home console, and thus not buying the home console versions. So they made them just slightly different than each other. But it's basically a pin-shaped thing. It's very common to find MVS to AES adapters, and ironically, I'm the other way around. I have an AES, and I have a few games for it. I even have the Neo SD Pro, but I don't own a single MVS game. I had a suspicion that this was what this was going to be, because I looked at their website and like, what are they even making right now that would qualify for something like this? And this is the only thing I saw that I thought, that could be it. Now, here's the issue. I don't own one. I don't own a single MVS game. So I'm going to have to go out and figure that out. Now, I might have already accidentally done that. When I was in Astoria, take a look. See this box of Neo Geo MVS games? A buddy of mine out there, Marcus, owns a bunch of them. There's a possibility that I'm going to have to go back to Astoria anyway, and maybe I'll bring this with me, and maybe we'll do something. I'm just like thinking out loud right now, because I'd love to do a video review on this thing, but I don't have a game for it at the moment. So we'll have to think about that later. But that's really cool. So I got to thank the Bahar Bros for this. That's really very neat. I'd love to show it off right now, but I can't do that just due to hardware limitations. Again, I don't have a game. But what I can do is, if you give me a minute here, I'm going to get set up again, and we're going to try out that Xbox One. Here's the moment of truth. So what's happening, just so everybody's clear, the Xbox One is plugged in through the power supply I got with it. It did not have that other end of the cable, so I just grabbed one off of something else to make sure that works. So we're kind of testing a lot of things all at once, because I haven't fired up the monitor yet, I haven't fired up the Xbox, and the Xbox is going to supply power to the monitor. So I don't expect any reaction from it until this does something, and we'll see if it does anything. So here we go. I also grabbed that Goodwill game we got, and hopefully it can read that. So let's do it. All right. Made the noise. I can't tell if it's lighting up. Is it lighting up? It is lighting up. I hear it moving. So far, nothing out of the monitor, though. I hear... Oh! Oh, look at that! And you can hear it, too. I know the volume's probably very low by default on the monitor. But it probably looks better to you than it does to me, because from here, it's mostly just like darkness. Oh, if I look through the camera there, it looks like it's green. So, all right, that's a good sign. I plugged in one of my controllers to it, by the way, so that's responding, so that looks like that's good to go. And we'll see what happens. Now, I don't have it connected to the internet, so if there's any updates available or whatever, I'm not going to know about it, but that doesn't really matter, because I assume if it gets that far, then it probably is able to boot up, but I don't know, we are kind of hanging at this screen. But then again, I spent a long time since I booted up one of these models. But, oh my god, look at that! Some other guy's profile! What's your name, dude? Justice Tater. Oh, he's got Ultimate Game Pass. Well, Justice Tater, you're lucky I'm not a jerk, because apparently I have access to your account. No. Wipe your accounts if you're going to donate your Xboxes, guys. Reformat these. So, Justice Tater, in the unlikely event that you watch this channel, hey, I have your Xbox, but don't worry, I'm going to completely reformat this thing. Wow. All right, let's see if it reads a disc. So far, so good. So we're going to fire up this one, which is a gamble disc, because I don't actually know if this disc itself works, but it looks good. So let's see here. Okay. I hear it spinning. So if it displays anything with Star Wars Battlefront... Ha-ha! There it is! Xbox One for $5. And apparently it reads discs too. So the disc drive, it didn't have any problems with that. I didn't even have to do like, if you have an older Xbox One like this and it doesn't read discs, sometimes there's a tactic where if you like lift it a little, like that, when you load the disc, gravity will help it catch a disc. This doesn't even have that problem. Wow. Awesome. So yeah, it works. And the LEPO monitor looks really good. Seems to play everything just fine, which is fantastic. I'm not going to try to install it because I have no idea what the memory situation. It doesn't matter. I'm going to reformat it. So, yeah, very cool. Poof! Sorry about the weird cut there. I was in post-production and randomly FedEx showed up and another package was here. So, right on. All right, we're going to open this up here. This is something kind of special. This is not something I ordered. It's something I was involved in, which I think is kind of interesting. So, this comes from the UK. It is a magazine or book. I would call it more like a book. Lock On. This is the first issue they've ever done. This is a British magazine publication. I am actually in this. Wow, I'm just noticing it for the first time. Probably because it's my name, alphabetically. I'm first, but I'm literally first on the back of this. So this is, I have copy 447 out of 1,000. They only did 1,000 copies of this. Basically, it's a British publication on the history of various video games. In this particular issue, they wanted to focus heavily on the PlayStation, the history of PlayStation. And they approached a bunch of people, including myself, for writing up articles. And in this particular case, they asked me to write about the history of the Nintendo PlayStation right there because I had a long history with that because I was friends with Terry. He was the owner of it, and I got to see it a lot and use it a lot. I've got videos on this channel all about the history of it, and so I, by default, kind of had the big history of it on my channel kind of exclusively because I would film with Terry so much. Around the time he sold it, and of course well before he sold it, and then of course he passed away, so like all the interviews and everything about what happened was pretty much exclusive to this channel, along with a lot of footage of it in use. And so they were asking me if I would be willing to write up that story, and I did. And so now I'm actually a published author. No, not really, but I'm in this, and I think it's really very cool. So they were just cool enough to send me a copy of it. So I think they still have these in stock. I'll put a link in the description. You can check that out, support them, and just kind of support the idea that, hey, I'm in a book-ish. So there you go. Very cool. And, of course, it's all about the history of the Nintendo PlayStation prototype and what that could have been. And what it ultimately was. So I want to thank a whole lot of people for this video. I want to thank the guys at LEPO for hooking me up with this monitor. I want to thank the Bros again for the consoleized MVS. I have to do something with that. I don't have MVS games. I'll figure that one out, but it could be a little while. So I'm going to put a link in the description so you can check it out yourself if you're like super into the MVS and you have an option to go get a consoleized one of those. Thank the guys who hooked me up with that Switch thing. Again, that'll be in the description. Thank you to the GG Retro Gaming for that game. That was really nice of you to do. Thank you to all my friends like Mikkel and Jesse, of course, and Roger for hooking me up with all that stuff. Thank you to Rob for his help with all the stuff at Digital Press. But yeah, just thank you to everybody in general. And there'll be links in the description to all sorts of stuff. You should check that out. So including links to my social media stuff. So Discord, Patreon, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Please follow me on all those things. Please like, comment, and subscribe on this really ridiculously long episode of PlayLoad. But thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.